and call the meeting to order. So, Stephanie, I don't see Precious. Who's going to do roll call this morning?
I think we're going to have Jeff do it.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Cuevas.
Here.
John Carr.
Here.
Rick Stopek.
Here.
Barbara Roth.
Here.
Serge DeHady.
Here.
Sherry Scarborough.
Here.
Varissa Lal Das.
Present.
Penny Pompey.
Present.
Glenn Groman.
Here.
Ankur Patel. Here. Angela Van.
Here.
Brian Steinberg. Here. Quorum present.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask Glenn to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have proof of publication?
Yes, sir, we do.
Great, thank you. And do we have any postponements on the agenda?
None.
All right. And I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, approved by Barbara and seconded by Sherry. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Everybody have a chance to read them?
Motion to approve.
And I'll second.
All right. Motion by Penny, seconded by Glenn. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. All right, so motion passes unanimously. All right. I didn't see any comment cards by the agenda for public comment. Those are for, right? Nope, those are for agenda items. So moving on by the chair. I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Glad to be back. I also would like to thank Serge for attending the planning workshop. We had the planning workshop up in Jupiter. I think that was back in November. It seemed like so long ago, but it was a great day. The sponsors were great, and it was a great learning experience. So I want to thank Serge for attending that. I don't want to say with me, but we were there. So that was it, and looking forward to a great 2025. That's it for me. All right, moving on to our agenda items here. First one on the list is the Round 25A2 County-initiated amendments. We're going to, excuse me here, I believe we're going to hear from the applicant on this one. Is that correct?
It's a county, sorry, sir. It's the county initiated, so therefore it'll be presented by staff.
Great. And we can hear from the staff, please. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tim from Environmental Resource Management.
Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Timothy Haynes, Principal Planner of the Resources Protection Division at ERM. The item before you is a county-initiated amendment for lands purchased by the county at the request of ERM. More specifically, these requests include a future land use amendment to the comprehensive plan to change the future land use designation to conservation on approximately 155 acres of our natural areas. And these natural areas include Cypress Creek, Hungryland Slough, Pine Glades, and also Palm Beach Heights, the Palomar Eco Site. And there's also a companion zoning amendment which the BCC will hear. This request, the requested action is consistent with past efforts to facilitate appropriate future land use for the preservation and protection of environmentally sensitive county-owned lands and natural areas. This request will also allow these natural areas to continue in their natural state as intended. And just to briefly summarize the location for each of these sites and their acreages, Cypress Creek Natural Area is a 0.34 acres of land. The Hungryland Slough consists of 42.70 acres. The Palm Beach Heights Palomar Eco Site is 101.13 acres. And the Pine Glades Natural Areas consist of 10.48 acres. The planning assessment finds that the requested amendments furthers the goals and objectives of the conservation element and state statutes, along with being consistent with the county directions, and is compatible with adjacent conservation lands, and also meets the comprehensive plan requirements. So staff is recommending approval with the motion to approve these amendments, and staff is here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have any questions for staff from the commission?
May I make a motion?
Absolutely. If there's no question, do I have any questions? Are there any questions? No. Okay, yes.
There's a question.
I have a question about the north of the Palm Beach Heights area, Martin County. Is Martin County doing anything similar to what Palm Beach County is doing?
I do not recall, but I don't believe so. This is specifically just for county-owned lands, so this isn't a part of anything to do with Martin County.
No, I understand. I was just wondering if Martin County owns lands north of Palm Beach Heights. Are you aware of that? I don't know. I'm just asking you.
I'm going to defer to our director, Deborah Drum, who's also here.
Hi, good morning. I'm the Department Director of Deborah Drum. Nice to see everybody this morning. I'm not 100% sure if they're taking similar actions. I know they have in the past. Martin County has taken similar planning or future land use actions in the county and their area. I don't know if they're doing that currently, but they do own property in the Palm Beach Heights area.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no further questions?
Are there any public comments?
No.
Okay.
We did not see any.
I believe it's this microphone. I'm trying to touch it. With great pleasure and gratitude to and to the county, I move that we recommend approval.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Motion by Barbara, second by Serge? Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, second item on the agenda is the Westgate Belvedere's home project. I believe this is another one by staff, is that correct? So we'll just have staff present.
Yes, Denise Pennell, the Director of Planning for the Westgate CRA, as well as the Executive Director, Elize Michelle, is here
Great,
to
thank you.
present.
Thank you, staff. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Elize Michel, and I'm the director for the Westgate CRA. We're happy to be back, and we're happy to see you. Happy New Year. Ms. Pennell, our director of Planning and Development, will be making a presentation, and I will be here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for your time this morning. Denise Pennell with the Westgate CRA. I'll just get this set. Okay. This is a county proposed text amendment requested by the Westgate CRA to, I'm just going to move the slide. Support the agency's 2005 and 2017 community redevelopment plans and the activities that are ongoing in those plans. The CRA...
Can't hear you. Do you mind if you
sorry.
speak? Thank you.
The CRA appeared before the Commission in July of 2024. Is this better? Can everybody hear me? Okay. This happened last time. And then we initiated with the Board of County Commissioners in August, so we are back here for this transmittal. The amendment proposes to revise future land use element subobjective 123, specifically policy 123B, the bonus density pool. To increase the number of units available in the pool by 3,000 from the current 2005 assignment of 1,300 units for a total of 4,300 units. Pool units are used to increase residential density in the overlay, reducing the need for future land use amendments, which expedites the redevelopment process and increases housing production. The acceleration of planned, entitled, and constructed residential development is depleting the pool, which currently holds 930 units. The request is triggered by the planned redevelopment on 42 acres of the Palm Beach Kennel Club site on Congress Avenue, which supports a CH5 future land use. The text revision supports the CRA's 20-year planning horizon, which now considers more transit-oriented development and mixed-use density clusters along arterial roadways and within the boundaries of the CRA district, along Westgate Avenue and in transitional areas south of Okeechobee, and the redevelopment of a handful of larger underutilized sites. The amendment does align with future land use element policy, which allows the pool to be increased via text amendments. This initiative complements the county's goals to encourage higher densities in designated infill areas that are centralized within the county and housing production countywide. The WCRAO, which is the overlay within the comprehensive plan and ULDC, was conceived in the comp plan in 1988 to encourage the development and redevelopment of the Westgate area. The following year, in 1989, the Board of County Commissioners created the Westgate CRA, charged with the redevelopment of the area. The area is 1,300 acres, 2 square miles, located in central Palm Beach County. We are bounded by Okeechobee Boulevard to the north, Military Trail to the west, Belvedere Road to the south, and Florida Mango here to the west. This is Congress Avenue, which runs north-south through the district. Following adoption of the 1989 Community Redevelopment Plan, the bonus pool was established to support the WCRAO as a receiving area for the residential bonus provisions beyond the future land use. The original pool was 300 units. In 2005, the pool number was increased to 1,300 to support those ongoing initiatives. This future land use map illustrates some of the limitations to redevelopment. The areas in red here have a CH5 with the majority of them having an underlying 8 units per acre. These pinkish areas down here at the bottom of the screen have a future land use of UT and are largely county and airport owned. Fire Station number 24, Westgate Elementary, Westgate Park and Rec Center, Supervisor of Elections Facility, the Adult Education Facility, all publicly owned facilities located within the CRA boundaries. The areas in yellow over here are single-family neighborhoods, Belvedere Homes, Belvedere Heights. These have a future land use of MR5 and are not offered the option of bonus density. This there was a large blue square there, but it's not anymore. But this parcel right here in red is the Palm Beach Kennel Club site, and the size of it, I can outline it with my laser pointer here, relative to the boundaries of the CRA district. It's quite impressive. The 5 acres at the northern part of this site here have been subdivided, and there's an application underway now for the relocation of the Kennel Club facility. The 42 remaining acres are to be redeveloped. Okay. And we're going to move into, oh, there it is right there. Okay, if I click twice. There's the Kennel Club site superimposed over the map. Justification, some key elements. There is a need for density to achieve redevelopment. And while this request is triggered by the Kennel Club, this request also supports a 20-year build-out projection that considers several redevelopment scenarios. The efficient use of underutilized land in central urban suburban tier where infrastructure is present and transportation networks are in place reduces sprawl. New housing development attracts additional investment and interest in the area, leading to local economic growth and revitalization. There are constrained conditions in the CRA district, and I touched a little bit on those in the previous slide regarding the future land uses and the number of properties that are in fact owned by the county and airports. Stormwater capacity and drainage needs. Infrastructure improvements have always been a priority for the CRA. There are several retention areas within the district that improve stormwater storage capacity and drainage. But those county airport lands too, and airport lands too, they consume a lot of developable land. And this initiative also addresses a need for local housing production. There is demand across all income levels, but quality housing stock is especially needed for the workforce. And the CRA's request for density bonus directly addresses this need. Population growth is on the rise countywide. We've done an analysis that indicates that population growth in the CRA district and within 1 mile of the area is actually outpacing that of the county generally and even Florida-wide. Developers can be incentivized to provide more affordable units in a project when residential density is available. Moving on to methodology, project assumptions. The request to replenish and increase the density bonus pool is supported by data from a residential build-out analysis, and there are several projection assumptions. There is a continued demand driving a strong output of housing on underutilized land, and this is especially true in the CRA district where we have several of those types of parcels and sites. Most of them occur along arterial roadways. There are maybe 2 or 3 40-acre pieces that have potential for redevelopment. And there are incremental redevelopment housing opportunities as well within transitional areas and along Westgate Avenue. This assumes a long-range 20-year forecast. These residential units are not going to be built within the next year. We may find that that number sits in the comp plan and is never fully realized over time. These market trends and housing demand changes over time. 8 units per acre is the highest density allowed by the future land use. The bonus density pool is implemented within the ULDC and within the the WCRAO, and the overlay is organized by sub-areas acting as receiving areas based on capacity for redevelopment. And so the analysis examined blocks within each of these sub-areas for planned projects, potential and future redevelopment projects, the bonus density pool, limitations by sub-area, existing viable multifamily units, and the number of acres that would be considered susceptible for redevelopment. Given these constraints, the scarcity of developable land, stormwater storage needs, low base density, even when combined with other density programs like TDRs, workforce housing program density bonuses, is still too low to achieve urban infill redevelopment. The CRA can really only encourage housing development in density clusters. We'll have a look at the idea of a density cluster framework, which was part of our methodology. And this map, I'm not sure if it translates well on the screen, but there is an estimated 185 acres of the 1,300 that comprise the CRA district that have the potential for higher density development. And this development outlook considers those transit-oriented type opportunities along the arterials of Okeechobee, mixed-use development density clusters. And the numbers on this map represent projected units needed to accomplish redevelopment in key density clusters that are correlated to the WCRAO sub-areas. And so we'll have a little closer look at this map. We have the Urban Highway, or UH sub-area, which runs along Military Trail here, intersects at the corner of Military Trail and Okeechobee, and runs along this portion of Okeechobee Boulevard. And that area is ideal, has potential for transit-oriented and mixed-use development in some of these bigger underutilized parcels that exist. And 1,150 units or pool units. There is the potential for 1,150 pool units. Neighborhood General, which is just a little bit below Okeechobee Boulevard in this transitional area right here, is ideal for missing middle housing and mixed use, and 45 bonus units are considered for this area. The Neighborhood Commercial, or NC sub-area, Westgate Avenue runs along here, and that is the district's focal redevelopment corridor, targeted for mixed-use development. 300 density units are considered for this area. NRM, this area just below here, you'll see it starts to become less dense as we move down toward the single-family neighborhoods. There's potential for small-scale housing development. Townhomes and cottage homes are quite popular in this area, and 75 bonus units have been considered for this area. The NR sub-area, reserved for single-family housing, and the UI sub-area. These are industrially zoned areas, very active, successful industrial areas, and no bonus density is offered to those areas. The UG sub-area here, in which two prime redevelopment sites are offered for potential. We have the Kennel Club site here, and then we have another 40-acre potential site right here. There's approximately 80 acres just within this sub-area alone that has the potential for higher density redevelopment, and that includes the redevelopment of 42 acres on the Kennel Club site. Let's see. So there is a total of 3,970 bonus units that are forecast across a 20-year horizon for the entire CRA district in its various density cluster areas. Less than 930 units that still remain in the pool. That's a net increase of 3,000 units that are requested, to an overall total of 4,300 within the boundaries through the policy. Let's see. Okay. So in conclusion, the WCRAO bonus density pool creates a competitive advantage for the redevelopment area in its centralized location in the U.S. tier. Due to the scarcity of land, development costs mean that developers need sufficient incentives to invest, particularly in a redevelopment area. Increased density allows for more units to be developed, improving economic feasibility of a project. It encourages private investment and accelerates the redevelopment process. Bonus pool units allow for higher density, resulting in a stronger output of housing units than permitted by the future land use and density bonus programs combined. The request to amend the policy to increase the number of units in the pool by 3,000 units from the current assignment of 1,300 units for a total of 4,300 supports the following. The goals and objectives of the CRA's redevelopment plan with activities that are ongoing, the county's Housing for All goals, and regional and state efforts to encourage urban infill housing. Thank you for your time. I'm here for any questions. Staff recommends approval on this item and the motion to approve.
Great, thank you. All right, I believe we have one public comment card on this one, Sherry.
We do. Alex Holliday, if you want to step up to the podium. Name and address, please.
Yes. Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Alex Holliday. I live at 385 Lytle Street in West Palm Beach. Today I'm here on behalf of my firm Frisbee Group and our partners Terra Group. As many of you know, we are working together to reimagine the Palm Beach Kennel Club site, which is of course located within the Westgate CRA. Today I'm here to express our partnership's full support of the Westgate CRA's proposal to add units to their density bonus pool. We continue to be excited about the growth and opportunity that is coming to Palm Beach County. But with that growth, we recognize there is and will continue to be a need for additional housing, particularly housing that is affordable for the county's workforce, our teachers, public employees, nurses, first responders, those that truly keep us safe and keep the county running. Given the Westgate CRA's location, which is of course in close proximity to downtown West Palm Beach, the airport, and some of our county's main travel arteries, we believe it is the natural landing spot for this additional housing. With this in mind, we believe the CRA's proposal to add units to the density bonus pool is a pragmatic solution to address the housing need, and is exactly the type of forward-thinking approach that we need to continue to foster the growth of Palm Beach County. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I would urge you all to vote in support of this initiative. Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll go to my commission. I'll start down this way. Any questions for staff?
Yes. Does your CRA have a TIF?
Yes.
So the TIF's available for any potential future development?
We are funded by ad valorem tax. We do have TIF. The county provides us with that funding, and we can and do offer incentives to developers through our various programs.
Got it. Okay. Just want to note on the record that I've looked at some analytics and whatnot, and I think that your request meets what the future needs would be for housing. I've seen some studies and whatnot, and you seem to be spot on with that. So I'm going to probably support this full on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Penny? No.
I don't have any questions.
Barbara?
Yes. Thank you. I like this very much. I appreciate it coming to us. There is a reference to sufficient levels of service and supporting infrastructure. I'm always concerned about the transportation and then the impact that might occur to vehicular traffic. Could you just speak to that a little bit? I know that there is public transportation there. What concerns for car traffic and all of that? Thank you.
Yes. I'll remind the Commission that this forecast is over a 20-year build-out horizon. So projects have the ability to utilize the Westgate TCA pool of trips, which currently does exist, although that pool is also depleting. And I believe when the numbers have exhausted out, will sunset. Each project utilizing the density bonus program is going to be required to assess traffic impacts through the concurrency process. And this ensures that the cumulative effects are addressed per the ULDC and statutory requirements. Yes, there are ways that we can mitigate traffic impacts over time by encouraging mixed-use development, which internalizes traffic trips. By enhancing transit options and improving those options in partnership with the county, with PalmTran, and with the TPA. The CRA has a continuing program to implement streetscape improvements and complete streets. And in fact, we have a project underway, actually almost completed, on Westgate Avenue that adds bike lanes and improves pedestrian connectivity and walkability within the area.
Thank you.
Great. Sherry?
I have nothing.
Rick?
Just a quick question. I know that area pretty well when I first came to West Palm back in 1983, and I remember this commission visited the Kennel Club redevelopment project several months ago, and this seems to dovetail in with that. The only thing that I recall, and I'm not sure how it's being addressed, is that area floods horribly. How and what mitigation efforts are being discussed? Because even with a little rain, that place goes underwater.
Actually, it doesn't as much anymore. We've done a lot of work to mitigate historic flooding that most of you probably remember if you're from this area. We don't see that kind of impact from historic weather events.
Do you think that you're out ahead of the previous flooding issues before they start putting all these homes in there?
We've gotten ahead of the flooding impacts. Stormwater storage is still an ongoing need, and we have quite a large central, we call it the Dennis Kaler Preserve. It is a central retention lake on about almost 8 acres of land. And we've been working with the South Florida Water Management District to establish a redevelopment credit mitigation bank that will enable developers to utilize that bank for compensating storage toward their projects. And so this sort of offsets a little bit of cost for developers, and it actually means that retention lake is sort of doing what it was intended to do, which was to further redevelopment and solve an issue of infrastructure.
Okay, I hope so, because otherwise you're going to be putting those houses up on stilts. Because again, 2-3 feet of flooding in those intersections was not unusual.
Yeah.
So.
Elise Michelle, who has been with the agency probably twice as long as me, may be able to add a little bit more.
No, I think you've covered it. The area does not flood anymore.
There you go.
We, in addition to what Denise mentioned, those measures, the lakes, the detention ponds, the widening of the canals, we also have a pumping station where we pump water out of the area before a storm. So since we've put in all these measures, the area has not flooded. So it's been in place now for about 15 years. We had help. We found those efforts when she was working for the CRA. So the area does not flood anymore and has not flooded in the last 15 years.
Thank you.
Ankur?
My question is about the cluster map that you guys created. So is this numbers sort of set in stone, or if neighborhood general has certain projects which requires that total go over 45, like you've identified 45, would you be able to reassign accordingly, or is this, by us voting on this is set in stone?
This is a projection. So we're doing an analysis that outlines where we believe there is the strongest potential for redevelopment. And these numbers are actually quite conservative across a 20-year build-out horizon. particularly.
So the 3,000 theoretically can be assigned whichever way the CRA comes based on whichever developer comes with what project.
We're going to be looking at more density in those key clusters that I mentioned that are along arterials that have the transit options available to support higher density development. So along Congress Avenue, over here, along Okeechobee Boulevard.
No, I understand that. My question is the 3,000 pool can be assigned whichever way based on projects that come, even though this is a suggested map that you're creating. Am I correct?
There, within the ULDC, I'm not really supposed to get into the ULDC, but it is the implementing code for this density bonus program. There are limits within each sub-area per acre. So, okay.
The 8 units per acre, that's the Bible, I get it.
Yeah.
My question is not that. My question is,
yes,
if
if I may.
projects of 8 units per acre that come in, and let's say neighborhood garden, that'll be 80 units bonus that is required over there. Would you be able to reassign 80 units to that, or is the 45 set? It's just a simple question.
Yeah, provided they're within the limitations that are in the WCRIO and the ULDC, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we will be able to assign more units depending on what projects come first.
Yeah.
First come, first serve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Serge?
I have a question regarding, there's I guess I was in the area yesterday, and there's a community there that I was wanted to know how will they be impacted. There's a trailer park next to the commercial, I guess that's that's a fire station being built there, and then there's a trailer park. How will they be impacted by this decision going forward?
We did have a community meeting in November of 2024, this was 19th of November, to present this initiative to the broader community. We had residents attend, business owners, property owners, developers, industry, and some county staff. And there was a support for the initiative overall because it increases the availability of housing.
Okay. But the existing community, what will be the consequence?
I'm unsure of exactly which community you're referring to. There are maybe 4 or 5
yes.
mobile home parks within the CRA district.
It's right
yes.
on near Old Congress Avenue.
Yes, there are a lot of mobile home park in the area. This request is not really providing the density to any specific site. We're just making it available. So developers probably is going to work with the existing residents of those mobile home park if they are bringing forth the projects to us. So we are not targeting any specific site. We're only making it available. The developers will have to do their own work. If they have to relocate residents, if they are buying a property, that's going to be on the developer. They'll have to work with the owner and the residents who live in those places. We're just making the units available because based on our projection, based on our studies, based on our research, developers are already looking at those sites. They've been making phone calls to the office, so we're making the units available. When they come, the developers will be working with the property owners and the residents who live in those sites, not really the CRA's effort to relocate anybody, but we're just making the units available.
All right, thank you.
Angela?
One quick question for those 1,300 units. Do you have a program for workforce affordable housing? You follow the county program, or you have a separate program?
It's a separate program that largely mirrors the county's program. We have, and again, that's within the ULDC. Right now, there is a 20% workforce housing obligation for any project that utilizes the density bonus program over 10 units, which is similar to the workforce housing program. And within that 20%, 10% of the total project units are within the low income category, and 10% are within the Mod 1 income category.
One last question. Do you have extra bonuses for somebody who does 100% affordable?
We have several affordable housing projects that have utilized the density bonus program to its fullest.
Brian?
Done here, thanks.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
All right, so we had Glenn make the motion, and I had about 6 seconds over here, so
I vote Penny.
I guess I'll take Barbara on that one. I heard Barbara. All right, so all those, if there's no further discussion, we'll take it to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, hold on, I lost my agenda sheet, is the West End Crossing, and we will have the applicant come up and speak on this one, please.
Hi, good morning, Planning Commission Board. My name is Jeannie Duscher. I'm with Kotler and Herring, and today I'll be representing West End Crossing. Just so for some reference, our project team, the owner is West End Crossing. The owner is currently here with us today. The architect for the subject site is WMA Architects, civil engineer Keen Engineering, traffic engineer Kimberly Horn. We have legal counsel with Gunster Brian Seymour, and landscape architect and planner is Kotler and Herring. Our request today is for a future land use amendment from rural residential 2.5 to commercial low with the max FAR of 0.10. So for some reference, the site is located on the southeast corner of North Lake Boulevard and Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. Currently, North Lake Boulevard is under construction to expand from a 2-lane road to a 6-lane road, and Seminole Pratt is currently in construction to go from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road. So for some site context, the site is located within the Acreage Neighborhood Plan and the Western North Lake Corridor. The Acreage Neighborhood Plan was established in 1995 and it was later revised in 2008. The Western North Lake Corridor study was done in 1998 and later revised in 2010. So during this process, the Western North Lake Corridor study determined with this population growth that, based off of staff's recommendation, that 27 square feet per person was a multiplier to determine how much commercial was needed in this area. So when this was modified in 2008, the current population was 16,443, which necessitated about 443,000 square feet of commercial office space that was needed. The anticipation of build-out by 2025 was expected to be 8,126 homes, which would necessitate about 572,000 square feet of commercial office. Well, as we all know, the demographic in this area has changed. The current population is 44,163. So based off that multiplier, 27 square feet of commercial office needed, it would need 1,001,922,000 square feet for the population growth that has seen. And just for some site context, this was the Acreage community in February of 1995, and that's our subject site right there in the southeast corner. And this is more of a zoomed in layer. The site, most of the homes that are there today were not there in 1995. Most homes sat on at least 10 acres to 20 acres. So, this at that time, the Acreage Neighborhood Plan was appropriate. Let's fast forward to 2010. In 2010, they saw a massive amount of growth, and that's why that study was updated at that time. More homes you can see were built, and most of the homes were sitting on 1 to 2 acre lots. This is a zoomed up image, again, of our site there in that southeast corner, and you saw more homes being built. This is the acreage today. The acreage in present day is a lot different than it was in 1995 and in 2010. And right there you see the Avenir development just north that is currently under construction for 39,000 homes. I'm sorry, 3,900 homes. And also, we do have other commercial development come in, and the IBIS just east of that. And this is the existing land use today with commercial. So our subject site's there again on that southeast corner, and the closest commercial lot currently that's existing is about 7 to 8 miles up North Lake Boulevard at the IBIS subdivision. And then on Seminole Pratt, it's about 3.5 miles on Orange and Seminole Pratt. And that consists of a Publix and a small gas station and other fast food restaurants. And this is the future land use of the commercial. So again, there's our subject site. Avenir is a mixed development. So they are still working through, right now they're building their homes, but none of the commercial has been built. There was a proposed Publix, but after the tornadoes a few months ago, that has to be torn down and rebuilt. So it's going to be quite, probably in at least another year. There is commercial that was approved on Coconut and North Lake, and that is currently in for permit. But again, there isn't any adequate service for the acreage community. And that is our big, point for why we are doing the future land use amendment, is that, that gas station, the commercial land use right there across the street, and they are proposing a gas station, is only going to be serving the Avenir development, which is 3,900 homes. That's homes, not population. They are expecting that's going to bring in close to about 15 to 20,000 people, and they will be utilizing that commercial center. But there's nothing in the acreage community, especially on that North Lake corridor, that is able to provide the immediate services. And there's more homes also just west of our subject site on 60th, a GEO home site that was approved for 2,500 homes, and that is currently in its process and permitting as well. So that's going to bring more traffic. And, we acknowledge that this can be rural in nature, this area, but North Lake, a 6-lane road, is not semi-rural, it's not equestrian friendly. There's not going to be anybody who's going to be able to walk down here with a horse on a 6-lane road, nor is, the Seminole Pratt expanded into 4 lanes. So we believe in the nature of the population growth and the changes it's seen. The data from the Western North Lake Corridor study and the acreage neighborhood needs to be updated. It's not fitting what today is, and we believe in what this change consists of, and we believe that this is appropriate and fits the economic needs of the area. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll have staff presentation, please.
Bryce Van Horn will be presenting for staff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Bryce Van Horn with the Planning Division. Just let me know if you can't hear me. I will speak up. This, again, is the large-scale future land use amendment request known as Weston Crossing MUPD. We did receive a couple of correspondence, which I believe are at your dais, one from the Acreage Landowners Association, President Bob Morgan, and another from an adjacent resident on Hamlin in an email yesterday. So you should have 2 on your dais in front of you. So as presented by the agent, So the site is actually comprised of 3 lots, which together total, again, 5.93 acres. It's at the southeast corner of Seminole Pratt and Whitney Road and North Lake Boulevard in the ex-urban tier, which is part of the county's growth management tier system. And this site is also within the acreage neighborhood plan area and within the boundaries, again, of the Western North Lake Corridor land use study. The applicant is requesting a change in the future land use designation from R 2.5, 1 unit per 2.5 acres, to the commercial low future land use. For some context, you may recall last year at the October PLC meeting, you heard a request for a private text amendment for 2 parcels on the west side of Seminole Pratt Whitney Road across from the subject site, and requesting to amend ex-urban tier policies that would have allowed, if initiated, submittal of an amendment for commercial low office. For the subject site, the applicant also submitted a zoning application, which is being reviewed concurrently through the zoning division. That application is to rezone the subject site from the agricultural residential zoning district to the multiple use plan development district, with requests for a gas station, 12 fueling positions, and a convenience store, a restaurant with drive-through, and retail, together totaling almost 11,900 square feet. For some context of the larger area, again, the subject site is within the unrecorded subdivision known as the acreage. Basically, everything that you see there in the light green is the acreage. Generally characterized by 1 1/4 acre agricultural residential zone lots with R 2.5 future land use, and in the general overall area commonly referred to as the Central Western communities. Here you can also see Avenir, Bay Hill Estates, other communities like Ancient Tree, Osprey Isles, Carlton Oaks, east of Avenir, and also those are within Palm Beach Gardens, as well as Ibis community within West Palm Beach. Zoomed in further is the 5.93 acre site, showing the surrounding properties in the immediate vicinity. All of the surrounding properties here have R 2.5 designation. As you can see, there are a few vacant properties, but most are developed with single-family homes. The area in blue is county-owned for drainage to support improvements that are under construction for the intersection North Lake Boulevard and Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. And again, single-family homes directly adjacent to the south on Hamlin Boulevard. And I'll just get straight into the staff assessment. So the county is required by policy to consider recommendations in studies and neighborhood plans. So as mentioned previously, the subject site is within the boundaries of the acreage neighborhood plan and the Western North Lake Corridor land use study. The neighborhood plan effort was completed by the Acreage Landowners Association with assistance from county staff, and was received by the BCC by resolution in 1996. And some minor updates to the recommendations were completed in 2008 and again received by the Board of County Commissioners. As indicated in the staff report, the site does not meet the recommendations for commercial in the neighborhood plan, including recommendations to prohibit gas stations. Regarding the Western North Lake Corridor land use study, the study was acknowledged by the BCC in 1998, leading to an interlocal agreement between the county, Palm Beach Gardens, and West Palm Beach. The study's commercial demand findings were updated in 2010 at the direction of the Board of County Commissioners. Each of the local governments were to commit to considering the findings of the study. And as indicated in the report, the amendment is not consistent with the recommendations related to commercial, as the existing commercial approvals already exceed the commercial demand findings in the study. Also, as demonstrated in the report, the applicant's justification is not adequate. The amendment only meets the location criteria for the ex-urban tier. The applicant cites development within the mixed-use Avenir project in the city of Westlake, but this does not provide adequate justification for additional high-intensity commercial uses on this specific site. The amendment is not compatible as proposed. Although the site may be suitable for some neighborhood commercial uses, given its location, the amendment with high trip-generating vehicular-based uses on this small site directly adjacent to residential is not consistent with the ex-urban tier policy to ensure development is compatible with the scale, the mass, intensity of use, and character of the community. I would also note, and here's the site again, I would also note that the net development area of the site is really only about 4.3 acres, given the parcel boundaries are at the center line of the roadways, and more than 1.5 acres is actually road right-of-way easements for North Lake Boulevard and Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. As you can see, the site is again directly adjacent to, and in fact sharing a common boundary property line with several single-family homes to the south. So as such, staff is recommending denial. Should the BCC decide to transmit and adopt the proposed amendment, staff is recommending a condition of approval requiring that the adoption of the future land use amendment and the zoning application are held on the same date in order to ensure the board has opportunity to review both the amendment and the zoning together comprehensively. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For the record, I'd like to note that we did receive a letter from the Acreage Landowners Association agreeing that they agreed with staff's denial. All the commissioners should have that letter. We also received an email from someone opposing the amendment as well. And then I believe we have some public comments. I'll turn it over to Sherry.
Okay, Lisa Johnson, if you want to step up to the first podium, state your name and address, and then after Lisa, Eleanor Burgess, if you want to come up to podium number 2.
Hello, my name is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Johnson. I live in Loxahatchee, 17856 89th Place North. Just a couple things about the presentation. Lots were not 10 acres in 1995 and broken up. They were always set at the 1 point whatever they are. Just wanted to clear that up. And we do have all the commercial in Westlake, just to add to that. We all feel we have adequate services. We moved out there knowing that we would have to travel to some, and we have more than we ever wanted, including possible a Walmart coming. So first I'd like to start out with the action page that was inserted into the final report of the action of the Board of County Commissioners detailed below. The Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners, October 1st, 1996, the Board of County Commissioners religiously formally received the acreage neighborhood plan by Resolution R 96-1485, and then revised it August 28th of 2008. The Acreage Landowners Association amended the plan on June 19, 2007. The BCC formally received and filed the amended acreage neighborhood plan on August 28, 2008 at a zoning hearing. The specific changes to L10 and W1 are shown in strike and or underlined. L10, the Palm Beach County should protect the aquifer and residents by prohibiting and permitting of petroleum facilities, fuel stations, auto truck repair shops, jump salvage yards, paint shops, etc., within the acreage unified planning area. This is underlined. The limited number of fuel stations having no walk-in retail capability and consisting of a maximum of 4 pumps with 1 fuel dispenser on per side for a maximum of 8 dispensing nozzle totaling. That includes safeguard measures that meet or exceed state or federal standards on the fuel dispenser and storage systems. Such a state-of-the-art secondary containment system may be allowed on existing commercial sites, subject to the Acreage Landowners Association approval. The W1 was Palm Beach County should prohibit proposed changes in the development of property that may contaminate or endanger wells, septic tanks, and canal systems, underlined unless such proposals are first approved by the Acreage Landowners Association or allowed under paragraph L10. The acreage community, acreage neighborhood plan, the overall vision statement was preserving and promoting our unique rural lifestyle by planning today for tomorrow. This is from page 3, enhance our rural character of the acreage and protect large lots, single-family dwelling units, residential neighborhoods, land use pattern. Goal 2, to preserve and protect the acreage lifestyle while providing essential ingredients for the continued health of the community. Goal 3, to support land use control that protects natural resources, provide orderly growth, and reduce conflicts between landowners. Goal 4, encourage agricultural usage of property that is permitted by the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Plan and Unified Land.
Ms. Johnson, would you wrap up, please?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. If I could just say that within the land use, we are commercially zoned property should be one lot and have a minimum of 10 acres, and that's in the in this plan. I can, if you don't have it, I could give it to you. I was on the west end. I was talking to neighbors. I was on the other side of the street. I'd like you all to go there and look at it.
Thank you.
Please do not allow this change amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Eleanor Borges. I live at 14686 Hamlin Boulevard. I've lived in Loxahatchee since 2007. I've seen a tremendous amount of development and growth in this area. We have plenty of gas stations. The residents of the acreage don't want to have the amount of development that is currently occurring and growing at a rapid rate without the infrastructure to support it. The amount of time that I sit in traffic every day to take my kids to school in Jupiter because they don't go to school in the acreage is extraordinary over the last several years. We do not have the infrastructure to sustain what is currently built, never mind the expansions that are happening at a rapid rate. I encourage you all to look at more community-based developments, things for our children to play, places that are nourishing for our community, not petroleum and gas stations. We have plenty of places. It takes 5 minutes to get gas from anywhere that we live in this community, and it's outrageous how much growth is happening. The animals are impacted. I have 2.5 glorious acres of trees with birds and wildlife all around me, and it is being mowed down on a regular basis. Animals are running everywhere. They don't know where to go. Coyotes are in massive population right now, killing our livestock. It needs to slow down. The greed is out of control, and it needs to slow down. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for public. Is that correct, Sherry?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I'll start this way this time for questions. I'll start with Sherry. Have any questions for the applicant or staff?
I don't have any questions for the applicant or staff, but I happen to agree that things need to slow down, and a gas station I don't think serves that area and is not needed.
Thank you, Rick.
Yes. Thanks, John. Yeah, as much as I respect the applicant's desires, and if I were a developer, I would be in the same position. Again, I know that area pretty well, and I appreciate Mr. Van Horn refreshing my memory. I knew we considered an adjacent property. I couldn't recall exactly how long ago, but it wasn't actually all that long ago. And if I recall correctly, that was a much less impactful project. I think it was a medical office building, a family-owned dentist or family practice that wanted to come in there, and we couldn't get our arms around that one, and there was a lot of uproar. I remember that one. There were probably 20, 30 people that came and spoke at that in opposition to that. So I think that out of an abundance of consistency, the commission cannot, in good faith, go forward and approve this, aside from all of the other environmental concerns which have been put forth, not the least of which is just the capacity of the roads, lack of traffic control at that corner. I just can't see how we could move forward with this as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Anchor?
I guess I have first a question for staff. They're asking for commercial low. Is even gas station an approved use in commercial low? or they're trying to get around it by doing the MPUD?
Well, a gas station is regulated in the code, allowed in an MUPD in commercial low future land use. It's a Class A conditional use, requires board approval. There's location criteria in the code also. So, of course, they've submitted. It meets the location criteria for that specific use in the code, but really, it's really the appropriateness of those high-intensity commercial vehicular-based uses at this location with their request for commercial low land use. They need the land use in order to rezone, of course, for MUPD to even ask for that use. So to answer your question, yes, they can request it through this concurrent zoning application.
Okay. I mean, I'm siding with my fellow commissioners here. I think the issue is that it's going to be hard for a home to be built at that intersection. It is a 6-lane and a 4-lane intersection. I don't think anybody wants to build a home because of the same criteria we brings up. If you're going to have kids, these kids are now walking out onto a 6-lane highway or 4-lane highway. So ultimately, at some point, there is going to be some use change that is going to happen to that corner. Is it supposed to be a gas station? I don't agree. I think that over the years, and this is going back to Scripps and everything else, there's some environmentally sensitive issues with that whole region that has been brought up. I think that's why gas station was put as a prohibitive use in that original document that was created. Like I said, I think if the applicant were to think about possibly coming with a more user-friendly, neighborhood-friendly use, which would truly hit a commercial low criteria, it might change the thinking a little bit, because I do see that intersection now that these road developments are happening. The chance of it being a home is almost nil. I mean, for all practical purposes. And I think all the properties in that corner is probably going to be that same issue because it's a busy intersection. They're going to put these traffic lights up. It's going to be a mess over there. So I do see that there is going to be needed something. I don't think that gas station is the correct use, and or even possibly a drive-through restaurant. I think both of those uses are probably not commercial low. To me, those are more like commercial high for where we stand. So maybe the applicant needs to think back and come back correctly with that, but I agree that commercial low maybe to a certain degree might be okay, but the way this applicant's presented with the concurrent zoning, I don't see me voting in favor for that.
Thank you, Serge.
I have nothing at this time.
And I agree with my board members. This area has grown so fast, and on North Lake and on Seminole Pratt, nobody's going to live on that corner. Nobody want to live on that corner. I have one quick question. What uses are allowed under commercial law? This is just generally.
Good morning, Lisa Mayer, the zoning director. The difference between commercial low and commercial high has been probably amended by the planning division about 20 times. And the ULDC, the land development regulations, have not truly that much of a difference. And almost everything that you can do in commercial high, you can do in commercial low. And that was from decisions made in 1989 where about the surrounding land uses and the surrounding densities. If it was a low density, they wanted you to get a low future land use designation. But if you think about, if you're familiar with the intersection of Lakeworth Road and State Road 7, there's a giant there's some major commercial plazas. Those are commercial low. And it's extremely difficult, I think, with our current comp plan and code to distinguish the two. The only thing I could think of you could do in commercial high that you can't do in commercial low is office warehouse, and light manufacturing we allow. But I think other than that, almost all of the uses are the same. There was a commercial low site at the corner of Lantana and Haverhill, and when that one was done, the zoning division did an analysis of the amount of fueling positions, and the Board of County Commissioners had put a cap of 5 fueling positions at that time because there was, which, fueling positions usually go as an even number with the pumps, so I'm not sure how that happened, but there has been discussions about the scale of a use and whether or not that is still consistent with the future land use designation itself. This one has 12 and it's commercial low, so that's up to your perception, but as far as the regs, they're almost identical.
And I think I wanted to ask that question because I do believe this site is appropriate for commercial low. Now, given that the regulations between commercial low and commercial high, there's no difference between them. It's only going to be the zoning part that's going to go in and say you can't do 12 pumps, you only could do 3 or 2 or however. So I understand the board's objection based on the use that's proposed, but I do believe this site is appropriate for commercial law.
Based on what I've heard from the Landowners Association and from some of the neighbors, approval of this would set a precedent for that corner that doesn't necessarily sit well with the people who chose to live in this area. So I don't support it. I do agree with my fellow board members that a more neighborhood-friendly commercial use would be appropriate, but not so much a fast food restaurant, a drive-through fast food restaurant, or a busy gas station.
Barbara?
Thank you. Yes, to the landowners, the homeowners in the area, I really respect that you've done your homework. I like to see people who go back and help us understand the history of your neighborhood association. So I thank you for that. It gives us really good context. I have to say to the applicant, when I see somebody come forward with using a straight multiplier, if population is X, then therefore we need Y increase in square footage of commercial services. That just has never made sense. It doesn't work that way. Fortunately, staff doesn't operate that way because we have to take some of these other conditions and restrictions into consideration. So there was a statement made about because the population has exceeded what was anticipated, therefore we should have this astronomically high amount of square footage of commercial. That just doesn't resonate with me. I also wondered whether there would be some residents here saying, you know what, we don't like driving a whole 5 minutes to the nearest gas station, and therefore we'd like something closer. By the way, I've heard that from some communities, and I have seen construction of an MUPD with a gas station where I wouldn't have thought the residents would want it, but they did because they truly did not have gas accessible. So I haven't heard that from the residents, and especially because of the environmental concerns, I will be supporting the recommendation for denial.
My turn. So I guess first, I guess I'm just a little, I'm still wrapping my arms about the purpose of the board, and then I'm a little confused as how we get here to a intersection of 4-lane and 6-lane highway without any rezoning of this corridor to this point. And I believe that we actually did approve at least the initial steps for the medical building to the west. We didn't deny that, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it was a vote of 9-2 in favor of initiation.
In favor. So in reading the packet here, discussion about a commercial node, it looks like we kind of already are taking steps to create a commercial node at the corner of what is a 4-lane and 6-lane roadway. I don't think anybody that lives in this neighborhood is excited about a gas station or a fast food restaurant, but again, you know, it just seems like this board is being asked each time in this last 6 months to make, I don't want to say a spot zoning determination of use, but it seems like that's what it is to me, which, I mean, I would rather see this board be making determinations of small variances for what is an approved use, but here we have, you know, I don't want to say a highway, but I mean, it's a pretty major intersection at this point, and we have 3,900 homes going up a couple miles down at Avenir, 2,500 homes at the GL Home, at least the potential. Westlake is not nearby. I mean, this is a area is developing massively, and I definitely can understand the neighbors having some shell shock as far as this, but you know, it seems like the horse is kind of already out of the barn here when the county approves, you know, a 6-lane and a 4-lane highway to this point, and now we're talking about a gas station, fast food restaurant that's not, you know, appropriate. It seems, I mean, when we look at the amount of development in this area, there's a tremendous amount of development. I mean, I'm trying to imagine what is going to go in this area at some point. It seems like all the members at this board believe it should be commercial. I believe, you know, if it's been since 2010, since the last time we've looked at zoning regulations on this road, it seems that's 15 years ago, and of course things are moving at the speed of light here in Southeast Florida. So I don't know how there isn't a concurrent zoning discussion when we are approving these big roadway changes, because again, I don't think this board should be tasked every time to say, well, we're, you know, now going to discuss a commercial, you know, use on again, you know, in on a major highway. We go a little bit south. We have a pretty significant Publix, you know, mixed-use development, and it's several miles east, I think. I don't know if it was 4 or 5 miles. But again, this looks like a natural area for some sort of commercial node. So I guess I just, I don't feel like a board should be determining the market feasibility for what should go there. I mean, it seems like staff, this board, and the neighbors are all, you know, kind of doing this ad hoc, where we should have some sort of more, to some extent, you know, stringent rules of what is allowed. And again, I'm coming from a board in downtown West Palm Beach, where the only thing our job was really to do was determine some variances within the code. And here we are trying to determine, well, do we want a gas station here? Do we want a medical office here? Again, I think the amount of density and the roadways are determining this is going to be commercial in the future. So, you know, obviously the board here is sounds like they're pretty much a no on this at this time. I understand that and can appreciate that. Again, can appreciate the neighbors wanting something better, but what's going to go here? I mean, we're not going to have a tree farm. We're not going to have, I mean, we're going to have, what uses is staff envisioning? Is it, you know, it's going to be a flower shop and a hair salon? Is that a more acceptable use? So I guess I would like to just try to understand, you know, why we are making this determination. Maybe there should be a overall a look at what should be permitted along this stretch of what, again, is now kind of going to be a major roadway.
Maybe we can get with staff and help you with that. But really what we want to look at is there questions for the applicant, comments on the what's on the agenda.
Yeah, I
and then we can
apologize
help you
again.
with that.
I'm newer on this board. It just seems that like this is again, just every time we're going to have a spot zoning decision on what commercial use is allowed. I'm kind of confused by the.
Well, let me be clear. This is not spot zoning. This is planning. This is a land use amendment. So this is not a zoning decision. There's a zoning commission that will be making the determination as to the appropriate zoning and site planning of this property. So what we're doing here is we're deciding whether or not to change the future land use of the property from a rural residential to a commercial low. So, and that is fully appropriate for this board to consider. That's how the statutes dictate we make amendments to the comprehensive plan.
Thank you
right.
for that.
I understand. Seems like we're making the decision at the same time, though. So if the question is, can we move this to commercial low? Then yes, I agree. This should be a commercial low. But it seems like we're making decisions on what we think there should be here versus the actual question of should this be a commercial low. So I would support this being a commercial low land use change. Thank you.
Thank you. Carissa?
I echo Michael's sentiments. I mean, and I do kind of deviate with this board a little bit. There's a 6-lane highway in a 4-lane roadway. I just think that there probably would be a need for a gas station. I know what it's like when you're driving down the road and there's, your tank is on empty and you need a gas station. I think with the development in the surrounding communities and the amount of traffic on these roadways, that might be a potential use that would benefit not necessarily this area, but the people who travel on those roadways. And I don't necessarily think we should be. I would support this being a commercial low. I don't know how I feel about us time and time again just voting on these specific plans. I do wish we had more information about the gas station.
The acreage plan, can I leave that with you? Because it's 10 acres over. Can I give this to you?
I couldn't hear her,
So,
but
let's just go with it. Go ahead.
I respect all of the different perspectives of my fellow commissioners, and I thank them for sharing them. Thank you. As well as the Acreage Association, thank you for sharing your opinions as well.
Thank you, Carissa. Barbara? Penny, sorry.
Well, there's not a lot to add after everybody's had a say. But I do agree with some of what has been said in that I can't imagine anybody wanting to put a residence on this, what is going to be a very highly trafficked corner. And therefore, it will be commercial at some point, whether it's commercial low, commercial high, whether it's a gas station with 16 pumps or 2 pumps. That's not before us right now. So I agree with everybody that's everything that's been said. It will be a commercial piece of ground at some day in the very near future. But with the smaller piece of land, 4-point-something acres, and all the things they want to put on it, I think it's too much right now.
Thank you. Glenn?
So I don't want to belabor the point of calling the applicant up and asking her what the basis of apparently there was a discussion of there's 27 square foot required for every resident of commercial, but those are figures that date back to the 90s and also, according to the applicant, also 2010. It's not the question of how much commercial is required per resident. The question is what kind of commercial is required for a resident. And I'm not a proponent of the fact that simply because there's a lot of residents and because supposedly under this formula, which I guess dates back to 1995, but maybe 2010, that we need 1.6 million square feet of commercial, and that somehow that's a justification for putting a gas station. If you look at the map, you see that the original plat, the lot lines reflect the fact that this was originally platted as residential. There's 3 residential lots there. The fact that nobody decided to build anything on them is really kind of irrelevant. So when you move to commercial, you have to go to what type of commercial, and then you go to the issue of compatibility with a neighborhood. a gas station, regardless of the lane width of the nearby roadways, okay, a gas station in the middle of a basically residential development is completely incompatible. That's the whole purpose of Euclidean zoning. The whole basis for our zoning regulations relate to the fact of you don't want to have a cement plant next to a residential development. And by the way, that's how zoning started. There was a Supreme Court case, Euclid, which said you can't build a cement plant next to somebody's residence. I've got 3 homes, it looks like, that would be behind a gas station, a fast food store, and things of that nature, and that is incompatible, completely incompatible. I disagree with my board members who say that you can't build residential on that, because I see in tight areas where you can. You just simply you rear load the driveways and come in through the back of the property, not off the major intersection, which is typically done in many cities. So it's a lot better to have a driveway with beautiful landscaping and coming into the back of your property than to have a gas station behind your house. The next thing is the county pointed out, or staff pointed out, that the county's own land is going to be used for water retention. Well, great, let's put some gasoline tanks right next to the water retention area. That's really an environmental risk. There's always a potential for environmental risk when you do that type of thing. And what you're doing is you're creating a ready-made source of contaminating the groundwater, because you're going to have a retention pond there. Getting back to the types of uses, even the type of use, we talked about the sort of the issues with MUPDs and what you can do there and what you can't do there. You know, a gas station is in fact a Class A conditional use. It's something that's unique. It's something that's not your normal type of commercial development in a property like this. The residents came up and they spoke, why don't we do something that's more compatible with the area? Yeah, a medical office where you can take your kids to the doctor is a lot more compatible than a gas station and a fast food store. So I'm probably the most pro-development person on this board, and I can tell you that and there's rules and regulations that were developed over the course of decades as to what can and what can't be there. So I'm going to vote against this because I agree with staff wholeheartedly. They've done a good analysis, and this doesn't belong there again, no matter what the lane width of the nearby road. So that's my take on this.
All right. Well, thank you. I think it sounds like we covered questions and comments at the same time, but I'm going to go back. But I have a few, I just have a couple questions for the applicant. So I notice on here that there are 3 residents right behind where you're looking at. Were those people contacted? Do we have any support from them or anything from them at all?
We did. We sent certified letters to them with our contact information, but they never engaged in any stuff. I don't know if the owner spoke to them directly at all. No, but we did send certified letters. We have receipts. They did receive them, and it doesn't seem like they have any, as of right now, any issues with it from our...
Point of information, Mr. Chair, is that we did receive an email, and that email is from somebody who asserts to be someone who lives directly south of the subject.
Right, I see that. South of the adjacent, but I'm not sure if it's...
I think it's on the other side of Hamlin, so not directly adjacent, but adjacent as far as the roadway on the other side of Hamlin.
Okay, and then, let's see... What is your plan, because I didn't see anything in there, maybe I missed it. What's your plan to protect on the back there? What was on the back of that property?
Good morning. For the record, I apologize for my voice. I was at the Orange Bowl last night losing a game. Well, I didn't lose because clearly I don't play football. My name is Brian Seymour. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I want to step back for a second. We'll answer the questions that you want asked. But to the point that Angela made and that Michael made, this is not an approval of a gas station. It's not approval of a site plan. This is a question of the comprehensive plan change, right? Which the commission will have the zoning commission, the Board of County Commissioners will have the zoning commission's recommendation on the uses. And I'm sure Lisa and I will have lovely arguments about that. But
Mr. Chair, before, excuse me, Councilor, a point of order, and the applicant has made its presentation.
Yeah, but
it's your call as to whether or not you want to.
That's right. He can speak.
I just want to make sure that
No,
that's on.
he's absolutely okay to speak. I recognize him. He's fine to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So the questions on how this gets developed and with what uses and doesn't meet the zoning requirements and the environmental requirements and all the things that have been discussed about the uses is not a question in the comprehensive plan per se. The questions in the comprehensive plan are, does it meet the comp plan requirements? And so I'm not going to get back into all the stuff that Jeannie talked about the changes since 2010 when they looked at that. And I completely understand the point about the multipliers. That's in that document. It's not something we came up with, but we do get that. It was just sort of a background point. This is a function of the change at this intersection, what's gone on around it, and it meets as Mr. Van Horn even said, it does meet the criteria in the exurban tier for the commercial low. And so, yes, we understand there are questions about the uses, and yes, we can continue to discuss that with staff, and yes, that will be ultimately the decision of the Board of County Commissioners, but that is actually not before you today. So while we're not going to not answer your questions if you want to hear about the buffers and everything else, and the environmental and all the things that go into the tanks and why they're safe, we can do all that all day long, but it actually technically isn't what's before you, so I just want to make sure we're careful as we sort of walk through this a little bit. That's all. Now, if you still want to answer, I'll go sit down and shut up, which I've been told before. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear staff's response to that.
We have no problem with that, but would the applicant explain? I would like to hear what the buffer is on the back. I would like to know, because if we approve this, there is a chance that gas station could get approved by the county commissioners. So just kind of curious as to what your plan was there.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yes.
The site plan proposed is unapprovable. I don't know that this is working right now.
We can hear you, though.
Okay, so you could talk about the buffer, but at this point, I cannot certify that site plan because of the circulation issues that we've relayed to the applicant.
We understand that.
You can talk about it, but it's at this point theoretical.
I understand. Thank you for that clarification. So all the commissioners understand that, right? So it's not a gas station. That's what. But there was a lot of questions about that. So just in case it does get approved, I wanted them to explain that to us.
Can we hear Bryce then?
And we will. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so it ranges where those two lots are, the single-family homes. It ranges anywhere from 60 to 70 feet, and that was following up on meetings with planning staff about the sensitivity to those residents. We initially had a 30-foot buffer there, and then with it, and keep in mind there is a wall proposed, so there's a 6 feet opaque wall proposed there, and then the vegetation we are putting, our proposed tree preserve is going to be adjacent to those residents to help further protect it, which we've been working with staff on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now I know that the fellow commissioners did want to hear from Bryson a little bit based on what counsel for the applicant had stated.
Well, I'll just go over the last thing that Mr. Seymour mentioned about the commercial low location criteria. And then I'll get to the other point. But the commercial location criteria for the exurban tier doesn't mean that an applicant is entitled to commercial low. It only means that they can request an amendment to commercial low because they meet the criteria. That's all. That was in my presentation, that the applicant's justification is really based mostly on the location criteria, that they can request for a change to commercial low. And submit an application. As you may recall, the CD&K amendment that you heard, it wasn't an amendment, it was a request to initiate a text amendment because that office proposal, was commercial low office, that they were going to propose, did not meet the location criteria for the exurban tier. So they had to request a private text initiation, which required the board to approve the initiation to even move forward to a phase 2 for submittal of a future land use amendment. That application died at the board. Although you recommended approval 9-2, the board did not initiate that text amendment. So commercial low is not an entitlement just because the policy, because they meet the policy. The other point I wanted to make was the justification statement that the applicant provided is predicated on the uses that they're proposing. They're proposing a gas station and restaurant with some retail, and that's part of the justification that they're indicating in their justification statement to support the commercial low request. And plus, we need to look at compatibility. So, and I did indicate, as many of the board members indicated also, we're not saying that the site might not be suitable for commercial low, but as proposed by the applicant with their proposal, their justification based on high intensity vehicular uses directly adjacent to residential, we don't feel is compatible. There are no other commercial low land uses that have been adopted in the ex-urban tier that are directly adjacent to residential. The last one, I think the board mentioned the last time we looked at this was in 2010, but actually it was 2021 with the southeast corner of North Lake and Coconut, which was an amendment to commercial low. That was actually not in the acreage neighborhood plan. It was north of Hamlin. But we did look at the Western North Lake Corridor study. And again, consider the study. And even that amendment exceeded the recommendations in the study, but it was at a major intersection at an existing commercial node. It was 11 1/4 acres. It provided plenty of land area to provide for compatibility for the adjacent residential. In addition, there were also roadways to the bordering the residential, separating the residential. This is not the case here.
Thank you. All right, so appreciate that. I think that from my questions and comments, I'm voting on land use. I'm not voting on a gas station. And also, I know that in the past we've had when we've had opposition on something like this, we have a room full. We have stacks of opposition. Now, we don't even have opposition or comments from the people that are living right behind there. So I'm inclined to support this. But I'm going to go one more. Are there any other comments from the commission? Any? We'll go one more round.
Mr. Chair, and
Yes.
and that is, which I forgot to mention. So the location of a gas station on a hard corner like this, also from a traffic standpoint, and again, this is my business, is what I do, traffic studies and whatnot for development deals. When you put a gas station on a hard corner like that, what it does is it creates a choke point. And you have all these people, unless you're going northbound on the road where you make the right-hand turn onto North Lake, the only way to get to the gas station is to sort of make U-turns, drive around in circles and whatnot. The people back up, so it is a traffic issue as well, where you create a choke point where there was one. Throw a little fast food in there. Maybe how about a Chick-fil-A? Ever heard of the Chick-fil-A drive-through problem? We don't know what kind of fast food's going there, but now you have a gas station.
Well, again, we're not voting on a gas station, right? We're voting on land use. But the other thing, Glenn, is that
that's to the point of compatibility.
I understand that, but also understanding the gas station business a little bit. Most people don't make U-turns for gas stations, unfortunately. Right there, it's the easiest in and out, is what I know.
Again, speaking to compatibility, which is one of the more important subcomponents of the determination of the land use, not necessarily the use.
I understand. Believe me, I wished back in the day people would make U-turns into my gas station. I wished, but they didn't. Once they put a median up, my business dropped. Any other questions, Barbara, or comments?
Yes, this is land use. We did have one of the residents speak about some uses that would serve their families, and I have seen in other areas commercial low uses that have made families and surrounding residents very happy. And none of those create an environmental threat, again, as was pointed out. And please, let's not forget, this is an area where the water supply could be threatened by a petroleum product leak. And I think that's getting lost in this as well. So I support staff's recommendation for denial.
But we're not voting on a gas station.
That's right.
Is that
But,
correct?
but we did have on our screen, we were presented by our very able staff the proposed uses. We're not voting on those uses. I understand that zoning. I've had my wrist slapped on that a whole lot of times over the last couple of years. But we were presented with that on our screen. And we do know the environmental impact were that to happen.
But we're not voting on that.
And I know that there are other commercial uses that would not have that impact that would also serve the families in that area, and we've had people come in and speak to that. So planning or zoning, we are voting on land use, and we are not a combined planning zoning board as exists in some area, but I have to go with the straight planning imperative, which is that this has to be denied.
Councilor?
Right, yeah.
One more
Hold
thing.
on. Councilor would like to speak?
Yeah, hold on, just let me clarify something. Okay, yes, you are not voting on the gas station per se. However, as Bryce stated, they presented the use that they will put on this property as a gas station. Therefore, you have to consider that as compatibility, and compatibility is one of the factors in making your determination, so.
Which would still have to be approved, right? From planning and zoning, potentially BCC, correct? We're talking about land use here.
So the they have to have the commercial low in order to be able to put the gas station. And then the board would determine both at the same hearing. So the board will know when they're making their determination on adoption of this, what the use is going to be.
The justification for the land use change was the gas station. You can't separate the gas station from the justification because it goes to compatibility, which is what the determinative factor is. So they put in, the applicant created the gas station scenario, not the county staff.
Okay, let's move down. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. At this point, I'd like to get a motion. We've been having a lot of discussion and back and forth. I think it's appropriate at this point. So I would move to accept staff's recommendation to deny this application as submitted, with the understanding of all the issues that have been brought before and discussed.
I'll second that.
So, okay, we have Rick and as the motion maker for denial, right? And then Glenn as the second.
Call the question.
All right.
I don't think there's any need to call the question. Yeah.
We're going to call it the vote. So
Yeah, if you want to
all those
vote
in
unless there's
favor
comment.
of denial, and I'm going to do a roll call, please.
Yeah.
Sherry Scarborough.
Now, keep in mind, this is for denial.
Denial.
Verissa Lal Das.
I vote no.
Brian
I'm not voting
Stenberg.
denial. I'm voting
To defeat the amendment, to defeat the motion.
Yes.
Yes.
Brian
Yes.
Stenberg.
Yes to denial.
Rick Stopek.
Yes.
Ankur Patel.
Yes.
Angela Van.
No.
Serge DeHady.
Yes, and for denial.
Glenn Groman.
Yes for denial.
Penny Pompey.
Yes for denial.
Michael Cuevas.
No for denial.
Barbara Roth.
Yes.
John Carr.
No.
Motion passes with Verissa Lal Das, Angela Van, Michael Cuevas, and John Carr dissenting.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
The
Sorry?
motion passed 8-4 for denial.
Next item on the agenda we're moving to our regular agenda, and it's the resiliency element tax text initiation. Don't need another tax, so text amendment. I believe we're going to have a presentation by staff.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Stacey Coceras. I am a Resilience and Sustainability Analyst for the Palm Beach County Office of Resilience. I am here today to give you a brief overview of what we're aiming to initiate in a resiliency element for the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Plan. Okay, so here is a summary of the request from the Office of Resilience. Again, we're proposing to introduce a dedicated resiliency element into the comprehensive plan. We're working closely with our planning team to review and collaborate with other departments and their elements and make recommendations for where changes might need to occur, all to ensure an alignment of objectives and strategies that support the development of a resiliency element. The Office of Resilience was established in 2018 to ensure that Palm Beach County remains a great place to live, work, and play while addressing the physical, social, and economic challenges of a changing climate. Our mission is to ensure a thriving, equitable Palm Beach County for all while confronting a changing climate through implementing adaptation, mitigation, and sustainable initiatives. This resiliency element will cohesively guide Palm Beach County and the Office of Resilience in proactive land use planning. It'll help create a clear plan to tackle climate challenges by reducing environmental impacts, helping vulnerable communities, and boosting regional sustainability and preparedness. It's grounded in regional partnerships and thorough research, including the Regional Climate Action Plan and the county's 2024 Climate Vulnerability Assessment and Resilience Action Plan. The resiliency element focuses on 5 key strategies. The first one here is adaptation to protect the county from climate impacts. The second is mitigation to lower greenhouse gas emissions. The third is sustainable development to reduce environmental impact. The fourth is social equity to ensure inclusive and fair outcomes for all county residents. And the fifth is collaboration with regional partners to maximize resources and data for effective planning. And we have a staff's motion to initiate. And thank you for allowing me to summarize our intent with this resiliency element. I'm happy to field any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Guess we're all questioned out. Anchor?
I'll do a motion to approve.
Yep, great.
I have a question.
Oh.
Question. So, how does this make the comp plan work more efficiently?
So right now, there is no resiliency element. There's aspects of resiliency within other elements in our comprehensive plan, but this will essentially allow us to help guide other departments and help guide decisions based on the work that we do in our department.
Can I ask who thought this was necessary?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to our department director, Megan Houston, who's here with us too. So,
Good morning.
Megan Houston, Resilience Director. As Stacey said, can you hear me?
No. Nope, we cannot hear
you
you.
want to come to this one, Megan? Yeah.
Oh, that's one.
No, it was on.
Oh,
I
was
just
it?
looked at the thing.
How about now? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Megan Houston, Resilience Director. So the first question about efficiency. Right now, things are kind of piecemeal throughout the elements as resiliency has evolved over the last decade, 15 years, right? Like some of it is environmental, some of it is our coastal management element. So we want to be able to part of this initiation request is let's look at it holistically. Let's see where we need to put things in a separate element that should be pulled out so it's all consolidated and it's not confusing. And then let's see what should stay in those other elements where it makes sense, like complete streets, right? Like maybe that's not something that goes all the way in a resiliency element. And then to the question of why this is important, it goes along with it being a fragmented approach just by, the nature of this being an evolving area of practice, right? Like 20 years ago, maybe we weren't talking about resiliency, maybe sustainability or environmental protection, but now it's really its own thing about how do we make sure we're addressing climate change impacts, sea level rise, flooding, extreme heat, that are happening now and that will happen in the future. How do we do that succinctly, and how do we be proactive about it and thoughtful as we're talking about the next 10, 20 years, and in a way that's still cost effective and still working with our developers, our private community, our different departments. So really the initiation is the staff thought it was an appropriate time to really look at this and move forward. Other cities, other counties have started to do this as well. We are not the first. And we think it's the right time to build on the momentum we have with this Office of Resilience from 2018, with a lot of our successful collaborations between our engineering, our planning, everyone, right? Like now's the time to really look at it holistically.
So I have a quick question. How do you tie in with the disaster resiliency component of it? Is that under your purview as well?
I mean, if it's certainly we support that, right? But I'm not the one you want to call when a tornado rips through. I want to be there helping to plan proactively to talk about wind mitigation and different programs and things like that. So we support and, of course, recognize the importance of emergency management in that role. And the things that we would be looking at are how to harden properties collectively so that those incidents that happen are causing less damage if we can.
Does that fall under your climate component?
I would add that as part of our climate adaptation component, right? Like I mentioned wind mitigation or putting HVAC systems higher so they're not going to get damaged when there's flooding that occurs. Those are things that would be within our purview of what we might recommend, and then we'll talk with our emergency management folks, our planning folks, and they might say, hey, that's covered under X, Y, and Z, and we're going to, let it stay in their purview in those specific texts. But that's what this year, these next few months are going to be those conversations with those different departments so that we are very clear about who's doing what.
I think that's an important piece of it because even COVID could be considered a disaster, right? And part of that disaster resiliency piece of it is I think, vital. I think we did under certain circumstances when it came to hurricanes and tornadoes, I think Palm Beach County did a decent job compared to other municipalities of what I've seen throughout the state, because that's what I do, is travel and see that. But we could always get better, but I think we did a great job. I believe that our sheriff and the police did a fantastic job of keeping the bad characters out and protecting the residents. But I think we could always do a little better. So as long as that component is in there, I think that's important. And partnering with, the Palm Beach North Chamber has the Disaster Resiliency Task Force. I can always connect you guys with Noel, and I'm part of that committee as well. So any of that type of stuff I think is important. As long as that's in there, I think it's important.
Yes, very good comment, and they've invited me to be part of that task force as well, and so I'm very appreciative.
I think our meeting's in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Love to see you there. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Serge?
My question is, what will be the economic impact to the taxpayers for creating this program?
Right, very important question, the economic impact. There's no program per se developed right now. These are recommendations, and so certainly as we are looking at what we're going to recommend, we're thinking about that impact of construction costs, of development. But a lot of what we also talk about is prevention is cheaper than dealing with the aftermath, right? So, I don't have like the dollars and cents calculated just now, but as we're looking at things, and we might talk about stormwater retention, right? Like that's a conversation where we have to talk about what is that impact on sites, or if we're looking at something general like increasing green infrastructure, right? Like that might be a time where the overall maintenance is less than the upfront cost of doing that installation, just on the nature of that. So those are things that we're looking at, and certainly not, the intent is not to say, here's something that's super expensive and is cost prohibitive.
Well, I mean, establishing an Office of Resilience, so.
Established already.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Otherwise it's news to me, no.
Maybe, okay, I must have read it wrong, sorry for that. Okay, I defer then.
Right, it's Office of sorry.
No, go ahead.
2018, the Office of Resilience was created. We just don't have our own element, so we come in and comment as a friendly voice when there are planning or zoning things up for discussion, but we don't have an actual described, set of elements to enforce. So this would be guidance to figure out a way of how to include the resiliency staff in these land use decisions, in these planning processes that might make sense. Hopefully make sense.
Absolutely. Yes.
If I
Go
may
ahead.
add,
Planning Director.
through this process, this is initiation only, through this process, Megan and our staff will be meeting with building department, various different departments, and some of those issues that you've already identified are probably handled in other codes as well. So this is an opportunity for her staff and planning, zoning, building, and other departments to coordinate.
And again, if I just may, this is just initiation. They will come back with a full draft, and that's where we'll be able to see, okay, is there economic impact? All that stuff will come in step 2, essentially, of the process.
Great. Barbara and then Glenn.
Yeah, very interesting. So when we would get our packets in the future, were the BCC to adopt this, would we actually see that this complies with your mission of resiliency? Would that be an added, in addition to not being spot zoning and all of this, will we see a resiliency statement?
Well, I think it depends on the type of policies that are adopted. So, we'll be working through that with them, figuring out the role.
Because that would be helpful. Yeah, thank.
More work for you. Great. Yes, Glenn.
So one specific question, one general question. So what is a social equity strategy?
Great. We think about social equity in the ways that certain populations are less able to adapt to climate change than others, whether that's because of age and they're in an elevator building and the elevator goes out and they have to walk 10 floors down, or they might have income restrictions that prevent them from being able to move to a harder, more resilient house. So those considerations are what we think about when we're applying for grants and looking at where we need to build infrastructure that can support people at risk.
The memo says that the social equity strategies were going to be applied to community involvement in planning and resilience planning. So explain that to me.
Right. Well, we have to know what people are going through to be able to plan for that. So a lot of our input, our meetings, we're asking people, what are they seeing on the ground? We're doing those workshops now. And one example is when we were out in the Glades, people said, hey, there's not a lot of tree canopy at our parks, and it's really hot. We don't want to use the parks, and we don't want to go out and walk the site. And then we took that feedback, we applied for $1 million grant from the EPA, and we got it. And so now we're working with our Parks Department to plant trees in those areas and to conduct tree giveaways. So that's the kind of example of how social equity layers in to the work that we're doing.
And have you addressed the issue of the flood zone maps and flooding and whatnot? Because one of the things that's really important is that you actually can do to prevent damage and whatnot for hurricanes and whatnot is to require your floors to be elevated and things of that nature. Have you touched on that at all?
I'm laughing not because it's not a serious question, it is, but because it's very complicated, and I think Stephanie, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but that'll be how we address flooding and finished floor elevation. That's a discussion with Doug and the building division as we go through these department discussions, right? Because right now it's very much in Doug's wheelhouse of addressing those issues.
A general word of advice, if you want to sort of advance these types of programs in the scenario, the best way to do it is to offer incentives as part of the whole development and building process so that you incentivize people to do things, not force them to do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Great input. We're always trying to figure out what are those right incentives within the county and what levers we have to do that.
Right, thank you. I think Anchor made a motion. I didn't get it seconded yet, though.
I'll second it.
Motion to initiate my motion.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All right, so Anchor motion and Glenn second. Any further discussion? If not, everyone, I look for everyone approve?
Aye.
No.
Anyone opposed?
No.
I oppose.
No.
No.
Right, so we have one no?
Two noes.
Who knows?
Two noes?
I'm a no.
We have two noes, I apologize.
Penny Pompey and Brian Stenberg dissenting.
Any other noes? Okay. Do you have that? You good? Okay, great. All right, moving on to the next agenda item, Planning Commission Annual Report. Is that you, Stephanie, giving that? Who's giving that?
Yeah, we don't really have a presentation for this. The report we do every calendar year just to give you all a summary of the accomplishments and actions by the Planning Commission.
Did I say presentation? I didn't mean to say that.
And we also include the new appointments or reappointments just as a matter of historical record keeping. So if there's any comments on it, we're welcome to receive.
Did anyone have any comments or questions?
Great report.
It was awesome. All right.
I think we technically need a motion to receive and file, or
Yep.
Motion to
Okay.
receive and file.
or to approve. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right, Serge is moved to accept the report.
Second.
Second by Sherry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any dissension? Come on, let me get one. All right, unanimously approved. Okay, updates. Any commission members? You have any updates or comments? Go ahead, Encore. And then,
So I wanted to kind of piecemeal, I mean, I know we couldn't talk about it more because of the project that was coming up, but to the point that some of the commissions made, I mean, anytime roadway is doing a major change and we're getting into these sort of 6-lane highways and 4-lane highways, I think we need to figure out a way of identifying those areas for discussion as to what the appropriate uses need to be in general. I mean, and that could be for even like a train line or whatever. I mean, any sort of infrastructure change that is major, I think we need to figure out how to do that, because I appreciate that the applicant's trying to come up, but we also understand that we're coming and looking at it as an application that was being justified in this specific case with something that was not appropriate. But truly, I think, like, my feeling was that that lot probably needs to be some form of commercial. But I can't, because of the justification aspect, I couldn't do it. I think if we could lay some groundwork as to appropriate uses, encourage those landowners to potentially do those sort of uses, I think it will be beneficial instead of us debating for an hour about the merits of a specific use on a lot. We're planning, we shouldn't be talking about specific zonings and uses for the lot. So I think proactively, if we can go after that, And I don't know what the mechanism for that is. Maybe you guys can educate us on if there's a mechanism for that. But I would love to see that. I think it will make our process a lot efficient and easier. Sorry, I don't know if some people had to comment on the same thing or not.
Well,
But
I mean, I agree with what Anka's saying. I mean, it's hard for us to sit up here and look and tell a developer what to do with their property, or tell a landowner what to do with their property. But having had two projects come before us in a short span of time, again, as an outsider looking in, so to speak, I think if somebody came to us and said they want to put a child care facility there, that'd probably fly. You've got a lot of young families in the area, they might want something like that. Fire rescue, I don't know that they would get enough money out of their land to, if fire rescue wanted to buy it or put a station or a substation there, I don't know. But I think it's going to have to be something like what Anka's saying, not a gas station, not a fast food, not something, but something that would be, for lack of a better phrase, user-friendly to the community. Otherwise, it's probably going to be a big non-starter, and it's going to be going to make the developer think twice.
All right, so hold on, we're going to try to go right down the line here so everybody gets a chance. Anything else there, Rick?
No, that's good.
Okay, Ankar?
No, so again, like I said, I don't know if there's a procedure that exists for this or not, but if there isn't, maybe there needs to be some form of methodology on how to do that for that. So I think my recommendation would be is that, we're having so much infrastructure change across the county, and all these roads that used to be for horses back in the day have now become 4-lane, 6-lane. I mean, you're talking about everything going west of Haverhill, now State Road 7, everything is expanding, and we're constantly seeing these projects coming piecemeal to us, and we're doing these text amendments for specific sites. I think if we could do a whole group overlay, I mean, that's what the Planning Commission should be doing, I think, theoretically, is looking at a group and understanding that if these things are happening, and if roadways are being approved to be this way, or if trains are being approved, or if something's being approved, then subsequently there needs to be an overlay district created, or a corridor created, or whatever that is, for a certain area around that sort of thing. And I don't know the solution to that. I just think that it's something we need to look at, and it just makes our life a lot easier. It also creates a better pathway for the landowners and the developers to understand what they can come, instead of throwing stuff at like the wall and seeing what sticks, theoretically speaking. I mean, that's just my position on where I think that would be. Other than that, I mean, Happy New Year to everybody, and hope everybody had a great holiday. That was the comments that should have been happening. Chair should be giving cookies out, but he missed December for that.
Well, I was still waiting for yours from last year.
We never saw the president. What happened to the bagels?
All right.
Sorry, guys.
Serge?
Well, thank you for everyone coming out. I just want to say for the, Happy New Year to everyone. And also, I just recently earned my doctorate degree. So I'm Dr. DeHady now. So I was just curious, do I get this updated?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine, so.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, thank you for everything. And I'm glad to see everyone is in good health.
Thank you. Angela? Oh, you were ready.
Again, Happy New Year to everyone, and I understand what he was saying, but doing zoning and land use for over 30 years in government, basically that's why I asked the question. It's commercial low. It's not, even though they presented an application that said zoning, if they would have came in, I think the county does concurrent requirements, so that's why we see that. But if they just came in for commercial low, we wouldn't know what it was. That was my only issue. I understand the gas station, I understand that part, and I agree. One of my other questions was, the neighborhood plan was in 2005, I think it was, or 7, or 10. Like I said, we're 15 years. It needs to be updated. It needs to be looked at. Because again, that's a 6-lane road, and it really does need to be that, but Happy New Year.
Thank you. Brian?
Happy New Year. I just want to congratulate Dr. DeHady. And to the chair, I would like to make sure that Dr. DeHady is afforded the pay increase that's commensurate with his new title.
We'll talk to the county about that. We'll talk to Virginia right away on that. And the sheriff. All right. Go ahead, Barbara.
So next time I'll have a different microphone. But I won't take this personally. Happy New Year. I have spoken to Stephanie about this. I really, really appreciate the wrap-up of what we accomplished and seeing how that tallies with what ultimately gets adopted in the county. You know, history, no matter what it is, can teach us about the future, and I think looking at this is kind of a quick guide, and I love it. So thank you all very much.
Great, Michael.
Happy New Year, everyone. Didn't mean to ruffle any feathers earlier. Again, I'm just new to the board and trying to kind of understand what our role is. You know, and I just think it's interesting. We, you know, did deny this today, but if they did come in here and say it was going to be a daycare, it sounds like it would have got approved, and then they would have moved to planning and zoning and maybe try to switch gears, and it would have been unfavorable, and then they would have had an uphill battle. But their you know, purpose today was to change the land use, which we didn't grant based upon, again, this justification for what they were going to do, which, again, I'm still just trying to, kind of determine is that the role of this, and does every project that comes through, and I know we've discussed this already in the 6 months that I've been here, are we going to see the use concurrent with the land use change? Does that help us or does that hurt us? I mean, should that be the way we look at everything, or should we look at it just as, I mean, if they had to have a justification to have the land use change, correct? I mean, they can't just come in here and say, well, we'd like to change the density from residential to, you know, commercial, but do they have to be honest at what they're going to plan to do it with that, or could they then switch gears and say, okay, we got the land use change, hurdle 1 achieved, and then say, well, we're going to do something completely different. So again, I'm a little confused and about kind of that process, and I you know, agree with, I don't know, with maybe I don't want to say training, but I'm just confused about the process at this point. So.
I agree with Michael. I think it's obvious that a land use amendment, a land use change is very necessary there. No one is going to build a house there. It's just not going to happen. I wish we could kind of sequester these issues so that were there two separate issues, like should we do this land use, and then this is the potential thing they want to build. Let's vote on whether that is consistent with the area. And then also I echo Anchor's sentiments where when we vote on the specific thing that they're proposing to change, we have some sort of guideline as to what's appropriate and consistent with that area. But that being said, I appreciate all of your work. I didn't mean to ruffle any feathers. I love all of you and appreciate all of you. And Happy New Year.
Thank you. Penny?
Well, guess I have to say Happy New Year, even though I've said it before, but again, it's going to be a fabulous year. And once again, thank you to the staff. You do a great job of putting all these presentations together. I can only begin to imagine the amount of time and effort it goes into putting those packets together every month. And I have to tell you that most of us do read them before we get to the meeting, even though I've heard accusations to the contrary. But I think we do, and it is very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Glenn?
And in conclusion, I just want to thank staff again. I think we have one of the best staffs in the nation. They always do a great job. I don't always agree with them, but the bottom line is that they do their job, and they are honest and straightforward, and I appreciate all of the complexity of the reports and whatnot. Happy New Year, everybody, and I look forward. It'll over time, people get used to how things work, and it's not such a big deal. But I think that we're doing a great job as well up here, and that we look at things in a fair and reasonable manner, and I hope to continue that.
Pat you on the back.
Thank you so much, Penny. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Executive Director, any comments, updates?
She's out of the office.
She's out of the office. That's great. No comments. And County Attorney?
No comments.
No comments. Assistant County, excuse me, I guess the Planning Director. What do we got?
Yeah, 2 comments.
I was just going to let you take it all over.
So thank you so much, and it is very unusual that we have 2 separate departments that do this, but you do a very good job, and it's hard for us, just so you know, Stephanie is phenomenal, our staff. We meet with the applicant ahead of time. We kind of steer them to what they can anticipate as a, how rocky of the road they would get. Sometimes their client demands certain, requests coming in. But to answer for future, yes, there is a disconnect between roadway and land use planning, and there is an effort in the county to correct that with our countywide master transportation project that's going on right now. There's an RFP coming up, that's alive now, to seek a consultant to do that, and that's going to look at land use, based transportation needs for the whole county, working with 39 municipalities. So there is some resolution to that, but it'll probably be probably in the next 1 to 2 years. So.
Okay.
And that's a happy not so new year.
Great. Thank you. All right. I don't think there's anything else. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great month. Oh, we're good for next month, correct?
To be determined.
Okay. Thank you.
At Palm Beach International Airport, every journey begins with wonder. We're home to new beginnings and milestones, where memories are made and cherished. With 35 nonstop routes and 14 airlines, convenience is always within reach. The beginning and end of your adventure is just as important to us as it is to you. So whether you're flying near or far, remember to always fly PBI.
We invite everyone to come out to visit the new Canyon branch opening on January 11th. Please come out and visit us. It'll be open 7 days a week and be accessible to anyone who wants to come and visit. You can also visit us and learn more of our services at our website, www.pbclibrary.org. And on there you can register for activities, request material, and find answers to many of your questions. Thank you for your support of the Palm Beach County Library System. We look forward to seeing you at one of our locations.
Multiple hurricanes over the years. And also it's been upgraded, of course. It used to be all wood and wood pilings and everything. Now at least they beefed it up and widened it a little. Any boat can travel as long as it will clear the bridge. If not, they have to request an opening to call on the VHF or via phone. And then the process of manually opening it happens. And this little pin.
Well, the waterway, people go from the East Coast at Stewart all the way to Fort Myers on the West Coast. And we have sailboats, we have shrimp boats, we have tugboats, we have pleasure yachts, and just all genre of boats that people use today. If they can go under the bridge, we ask them to go under, which usually there's about 15 or 16 foot of clearance under the bridge. If they're higher than that, which a lot of them are, then we come up and open the bridge and let them pass.
This is a causeway from the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic Ocean instead of having to go all the way around Key West.
We have people come here to go fishing, and a lot of people come to see the bridge operate. I either work for myself, I work for the state of Florida, I work for Palm Beach County. I always had a purpose. Nice opening and close.
Whether you're biding your time to cross, casting your line and waiting for that telltale nibble, or simply savoring the last rays of sunshine dancing across the lake, that old bridge still holds court, standing steadfast in the night, just like the rich muck that blankets this land. She may seem simple, her purpose runs deep.
The following video features various sections that are involved in the process of land development, from engineering review to processing applications and approval of construction plans. The Land Development Division is dedicated to providing courteous and professional service to the residents of Palm Beach County. Thank you for watching.
The right-of-way permitting section. This section obtains its authority to govern the county-maintained right-of-ways from Section 125 of the Florida statutes. This statute authorizes the Board of County Commissioners to grant authorization to construct, maintain, and operate and repair water mains, sanitary and storm sewers, gas pipelines, telecommunication systems, electric power, and other public utilities. The permit section is also responsible for reviewing applications for road improvement projects, turn lanes, driveways, drainage connections, utility installations, landscaping, and other modifications to the right-of-way areas. In addition, an ordinance approved by the Board of County Commissioners, known as the Right-of-Way Construction Permitting Ordinance, provides the Land Development Division with more specific control over the right-of-way and forms the basis of the permitting section's work administering the right-of-ways. Article 11 of the Unified Land Development Code contains the general criteria used to review applications in conjunction with the Land Development Design Standards Manual posted on our website. Permit applications are processed through e-permitting, a paperless online computer system. In addition to the electronic processing of submittals, there is a daily contingent of professionals and members of the general public seeking assistance with a wide array of processes and issues. The County Construction Coordination Division inspectors verify permit compliance of right-of-way and utility permits. Drainage reviews are inspected and certified by the engineer of record attesting compliance with the regulations of Palm Beach County. Platting. This section administers the subdivision platting, plat waiver, and lot combination regulations as predominantly contained in Article 11 of the Unified Land Development Code. Recently, this section has started an electronic review process. Special Projects section. The Special Projects section conducts special research, monitors conditions of approval, administers abandonment, and road closure ordinances. A Geographic Information System, or GIS, is used to plot right-of-way permits, their status, and various county projects in the county's geonavigation system. This important section also assists the public with requests for building baseline waivers, removal agreements for drainage easement, and lake maintenance easement encroachments. Zoning section. The zoning section coordinates with and represents the engineering department's concern with respect to zoning and engineering issues under the Unified Land Development Code, or ULDC. The duties and responsibilities of the division in this regard include, but are not limited to, review of applications submitted to the zoning division, representing the engineering department at meetings pertaining to these petitions, representing the engineering department at development review officer meetings and zoning commission meetings, and recommending and coordinating engineering conditions of approval. The Land Development Division is committed to continually improving the services provided to our customers, the protection of the overall public health, safety, and welfare, and to achieving a recognized high level of public satisfaction and quality of service. For more information, contact the Land Development Division.
The Mayflower event in our community's history was the wreck of a Spanish ship called the Providencia, which in January of 1878 ran aground about where Mar-a-Lago is. And these pioneer families salvaged the ship, which was a huge boon. We had no stores here. The nearest store was a place called Sand Point. It's today called Titusville. It's 120 miles away. So you can imagine a ship filled with wood and nails and brass and copper. They ate all the food, they drank all the booze, they had a big party on the beach for days, and after they ran out of booze and all the pioneers sobered up, they started to figure out, what are we going to do with the shipwreck? And they stripped all the wood off of it and they built their homes out of them. But they had one thing they didn't know what to do with, and that was in the cargo hold of the ship. It was 20,000 coconuts being transported from the Caribbean back to Spain. And they looked at each other and thought, what the heck are we going to do with 20,000 coconuts? But it was the perfect cash crop for them to farm. We could grow anything here. You can grow here year-round, which is unique to South Florida, which was enough to feed everyone. No one ever went hungry, but there was nothing to sell, because by the time you got your tomatoes and green beans to market in Jacksonville, it took you a week to get them there. They were all spoiled, so there was no consistent income. The coconuts offered an opportunity for consistent income, so they planted them all up and down the barrier island. But what ultimately happened, of course, was 20,000 coconut palms grew to maturity, and they were beautiful. And when we finally had enough of a population here to justify getting our first post office, we had to give a name to that post office. And that post office is in what is today Palm Beach, which had not yet been named. They looked around at the vast plantation of coconut palms and they said, we'll name it Palm City Post Office. And they sent that away and went on about their business. And a month or so later, the U.S. Postal Service sent a notice back. Sorry guys, that name is already taken elsewhere. You need to come up with another name for your post office. So in a very hastily organized meeting of 4 or 5 people, there was actually a tourist who was here on a hunting or fishing trip who said, why don't you just call it Palm Beach? And I think they were tired of debating it, and they said, sure, let's just go with that. And they sent that back to the Postal Service and named their post office Palm Beach, which was accepted. And in the following decade, Flagler arrives and builds the Royal Poinciana Hotel and builds the Breakers Hotel, and a town grew up around the post office. So the town took the name of the post office, Palm Beach. And as the area grew and the need for more workers, the area west of Palm Beach developed as a town.